All right. Well, if you're still feeling like you want to share what you're excited about, go ahead and throw that in the chat. But I'll go ahead and move on to starting to talk a little bit about what our activity demo is for today. If you're still feeling like if you're still typing away, or you feel free to share out that what you're excited about. But we'll go ahead and move on to that activity demo. So this is a really cool activity from the STARNet STEM Activity Clearinghouse. If you're not familiar with the STARNet STEM Activity Clearinghouse, it is a clearinghouse. It is a collection of over 500 vetted STEM activities that we put together for libraries. I'm going to go ahead and throw the link to the this is the link to see the collection to the StarNet Clearinghouse. We have themed collections, and we put together one that's all about solar eclipse activities and solar science activities. So this is one of those from the collection. So it is a do-it-yourself sundial clock. So if you're not familiar with how a sundial works, a sundial uses a something that casts a shadow. In this case, it's going to be using a string, but if you've seen a garden sundial, for example, you might see like a triangular piece on a flat stone circle. That triangular piece is called the gnomon, and that is what casts the shadow that tells you what time it is. So sundials work by positioning the sundial relative to where the sun is in your position, and it uses, as the sun travels across the sky, it casts a shadow that shadow changes position as the sun travels, indicating the time. So this is a really cool way of creating a printable DIY sun clock or sundial that you can have at your library. So we have different versions. So when you are designing a sundial, there's a few things you have to keep in mind, like position, where you are on the Earth's surface, because different latitudes have a different distance and angle to the sun. So you need to take that into consideration. So we created different versions for different latitudes. And this one you'll have to subtract 1 hour if you're using this during daylight savings time. And you can check the accuracy of it using a clock or phone. And I'll be showing you how we do that in just a second. So really, really cool activity. And it's a really great way to think about where, if you're on the path or you're not on the path, it's a really great way to explore how the sun is visible in different ways based on where you are on Earth. So it's a great way to explore some of the themes of the eclipse. So the supplies you'll need are cardstock or heavy paper, and you're going to print your sundials directly onto that. Some string or yarn, a pair of scissors, or maybe if you've got an older audience, if you wanted to use something like an X-Acto knife, you can use anything to cut some cardstock, and a little bit of tape. And then included in the activity guide that's great for you is a table sign, 3 different versions of the sun clock. I'll show you the differences between those in just a second, and step-by-step instructions. So what's really cool about this activity is it makes a fantastic facilitated activity if you're including this as maybe part of some Eclipse programming. A lot of our librarians who have already received glasses have done programs, and they've only given out the glasses to program attendees. So you attend a program teaching about the eclipse and some solar science and get the glasses that way. We've also had some librarians using this as a really fantastic take and make kit. You can include just a 6-inch piece of string and a printed copy of the activity guide and send this home as a take-home kit with some learners, or as a just to have to take home. It's also a really great passive table activity because we include that table sign. So there's a few different ways you can use this for programming, not just for event programming, but leading up to the eclipse. And this activity is really great because it isn't reliant on the eclipse to engage your audience. You can do this before or after the eclipse. In fact, during the eclipse, you're not actually going to be able to use the sundial because the moon's shadow is going to be covering the sun. So it's a really great way to engage with your audience if they're excited about learning about the sun because of the eclipse. You can do some follow-up programming. NASA is doing a whole year of heliophysics this year. There's some really really cool stuff going on with the Parker Solar Probe, which isn't related to the eclipse, but is related to the sun. And we're learning all about the sun's corona and what materials are ejected from the sun every day. That we're learning that information thoroughly for the first time. So there's a ton of stuff to explore through our programming as well as NASA's all about the sun. So this is a really great way to take advantage of that. Oop. So I'm going to go ahead and switch my camera and I'll show ahead and show how this activity works. All right. All right, so we have my spotlight video. So this is everything that comes in the activity. So here we have the materials that come with the activity. So this is what the table sign looks like. You can print this out, and it's got some step-by-step instructions. There's also this facilitation guide for librarians that walks you through everything you need to do. Preparation, procedure, how to construct it, and some really interesting questions about what you can ask for that. So like one great thing you can do is you can set this up as an experiment. Once you've constructed your sun clock, you can ask program participants to try and figure out what direction does this sun clock need to face. What are ways that this impacts, what are things you need to keep in mind? Things like what time of day you're setting this up, if there's anything casting a shadow over your sun clock, things like that. And all that kind of stuff is covered in that participation guide. So you can laminate this table sign, put it on a table as a passive program, or if you're wanting to have participants make this during your Eclipse Day programming, this also makes a really great passive activity for that. So as I said, there's 3 different versions of the sun clock, depending on where you are in the US. So the Pocket Sun Clock 1 is for Southern California, Southern Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, the kind of southern portion of the country by latitude. This middle one is kind of more for the middle portion, Northern California, Northern Nevada, Utah, Colorado, etc. And if you're on the northern part of the country, anywhere that's maybe bordering Canada, you're going to go ahead and use this third version. And each one of these has it lists exactly where in the state you want to use these. And so that you'll see the difference here if we line them up next to each other, is that here's a completed version, and the gnomon right here, that string that's acting as a gnomon is going to cast a shadow when you have it facing in the right direction and indicate that shadow will line up with one of these lines to indicate the time. And so the difference is as you're traveling south to north, that angle of the sun relative to your position is going to change the length and direction of the shadow. So we've lengthened these time indicator lines. If you're more southern, there'll be longer lines. If you're more northern, they'll be shorter. And then putting it together is a fairly simple process. So this is what one of the sun clock ones, this is the ones for Southern California and those in the southern part of the country. Once you print it out and cut it out, it'll look just like this. You'll see there's a couple of indicators. I'll go ahead and pull this up here. So we have 2 little notches right here at the top and the bottom. You're going to cut those real quick and then fold along that dotted line. So we'll just take our pair of scissors, cut into those slits, and then folding along the dotted line to make sure that it's at a 90-degree angle. If you want to, sometimes I like to take a straight edge and use that as a guide. That helps me get a nice crisp edge. Now, one thing about these is you can absolutely just do that fold, but one thing is if you sometimes these have a hard time maintaining that 90-degree angle. If you'll see, even though I folded it and kind of crisped that edge, sometimes it can be either too far forward or too far back. So what you can do in that case is to make sure that it stands up right, is once it's folded there, right here in the middle, you're just going to cut 2 slits on either side here. So you have a little insert, and what you're going to do is push that forward. Once those are cut, I need to make mine a little deeper. So you got those cuts, and you'll have that little flap there. And what you can do is push that flap in And so when you fold this, that acts as a little brace. So you can see that as forming at the 90-degree angle right there, right here. So that forms a little brace, and that helps hold that a lot more in that 90-degree position. And then once you've got everything cut and folded, you're just going to take your piece of string and some tape. And what I like to do is I'm going to go ahead and put it through the top here, through that slit I cut, attach my tape to the back there so that I've got it nice and firm, and then do the same thing with the other end through that bottom slit. And just pull it until you're at about a 90-degree angle. And then go ahead and attach that bottom portion of the string, through that slit to the bottom of your sun clock with another piece of tape. And here you go. You have a ready-to-go sun clock. And when you're looking at it, you should, even if you're not completely taut, it should be about in the middle there. And then when you have this facing in the southern direction, if you have the face of this clock facing south, the sun will project the time onto your time indicator. So what you can do is you can have your visitors set these up, and then you can check the time with a watch or a clock. If the sun clock is not showing the correct time, you can explore things like what are adjustments you can make to this. Do I need to take off the string and make it a little more taut? Am I using too thick of a string? Is my angle of my sun clock too forward, too far back? And you can explore some engineering design principles, exploring and doing some experimentation about how to improve your design for the sun clock. All right, so that's the DIY sun clock. That's one of many activities in the STARNet STEM Activity Clearinghouse SEAL collection. Highly recommend you check out all of those, and I hope you enjoy that DIY sun clock activity. All right, so we have